Hello, awesomers. It is me. It's your old buddy, Steve Simonson, and we are back for our final part of the Founder Foundation series today. It's part number 31 of a 31 day in a row gift to you, my friends, my entrepreneurs, my fellow leaders who want to get their business better, frankly, and they want to create a better business. We've gone through some of the big picture stuff, the macro stuff about getting your house in order and getting yourself oriented the right direction vis-a-vis your personal why and your company strategic objective. We've talked about the marketing foundations. We've talked about some of the management foundations most recently and some of the finance foundations sandwiched in the middle. So today's episode is a final piece, although there's more to management than this, but this is the last one I'm sharing, is how we manage our time for the win. So we call it time management for the win. It's kind of like you're on a game show. We already talked about how you have your own time management, and we encourage you to do an audit of your time. And this is a great opportunity for you to take that audit of your time and now make it actionable. You likely already found things you wanted to eliminate or otherwise modify in your schedule as a result of that audit. For me, the time audit, because I did it minute by minute, I literally hand wrote it down minute by minute what I was doing, taking calls, going to the bathroom, driving, recording a podcast, on a Zoom, in a meeting, whatever it was. I'm like everything for my entire day for an entire week. And then I had an assistant go through and put all of that stuff into basically an Excel sheet so I could make some pivot tables out of it. And I had already categorized on my sheet what category that work would fall into, whether it was entrepreneurial work, whether it was managerial work, or whether it was technician level work, right? Tactical, as I like to call it. And the truth is I was doing a bunch of stuff that I shouldn't have been doing. Surprise. And it's not just as simple as going, well, I'm not going to do that anymore. Some of it is just behavior driven. So we have to modify our behavior. So over time, not immediately, but over time, I was able to move to a system of controlling my time that was much more oriented to my likes and dislikes. And I'm going to share a little bit about that with me and also an example, perhaps, or at least get into the concept of how this same concept applies to your team. You getting your time optimized, and you're going to use, time blocking is what I would recommend. That will greatly help you become a better leader and become a better entrepreneur, assuming you're at the ownership level. But if you're an executive or one of the key leaders in an entrepreneurial organization, you need to be a better leader. And the same concept of time blocking is highly, highly relevant. The higher up your share of work is in the entrepreneurial section or the management section, the more time blocking really does make sense. And along the way, by the way, I've left so many breadcrumbs for you all through this. Having a BDM is a core benefit of getting your time management done right. Because instead of having all these random ad hoc inquiries and meetings and phone calls and whatever else with your team, most of that stuff will start just falling into one day a week, 30 minutes, that's what I schedule. And you just bebop right through the list. It really synthesizes and clarifies for everybody what we need to be focused on. And it eliminates the kind of long stream. I remember literally people lined up outside my door waiting in line to come and give me whatever problem they have so that I could, the Mr. Wizard solve the problem. And by the way, I did that for a long time because I thought I was the only one who could solve those problems. And this is what we call a permission-based problem. And this is the most extreme example of terrible time management, right? I would show up on a day, let's just say it was a Wednesday for the sake of discussion. And, at some point somebody would wander by, hey, good morning, a little socialization. And then, hey, I've got this problem. And of course, now I'm in happy land, right? My dopamine's off and running. It's like, oh, you got a problem. I'm a good problem solver. Let me get into it. And we would talk about that problem. And then I'd notice there's other people out the door. So I'd have to wrap that up. And it's like, hey, whoever's next, come on in. And the next person would come in and they got another problem. And so dopamine is running high. And I'm like, hey, here's what I would do. And I'm like, an old time cowboy, just, zinging down these problems one after another. I'm, as usual, mixing metaphors. I got cowboys and firefighters and all these different things happening. But the point is, this open door policy, which I thought was a smart management thing, was idiotic. I was doing a disservice to myself and a disservice to every one of those people. And one of my board members at the time made me aware of this when I said, gosh, I don't feel like I get very much done in a day. And, because they would start asking strategic level questions and like, hey, what's our plan for next quarter? And I'm like, who's got time to think about the future? Are you kidding me? I'm barely keeping my breath day to day. And if you feel like that, you have this problem too. So to be able to step back and take a breath, you have to remove the permission-based problem of just saying, come to me with your problems. And the number one step for that, as I've shared in the past, is start when somebody presents a problem to you, simply ask them, what do you think we should do? And as long as they tell you something that's not some show-stopping, company-killing idea, just say, go ahead and try that and let me know how it goes. Right? It's that simple. They bring you a problem. You say, what do you think we should do about it? They tell you what they think, was a good idea. And then you say, all right, go try that out. Let me know how it goes. Period. Now, by the way, if they don't come with a solution to that problem, you send them away and say, come back when you have an idea how we solve this. Again, you're not taking that problem on board. Don't keep jumping these monkeys from them to you. And then you're in constant, kind of monkey work. So that's time management tip number one. Don't create your own permission-based problems. But the next time management tool that I have found most effective is blocking your time. And by blocking, I mean setting up your week in different blocks of activities and really having it on your calendar, just like this. So as an example, just a quick and easy example, Mondays are my big meeting days. So my calendar is just stacked top to bottom with meetings with different business units and department heads and leaders of those businesses. And I go through the day and I meet with them and I ask them questions. And we have a BDM and we have BDM systems. So we just pull up the BDM. We go through it, we document everything. We can comment, tag, leave notes. Like it's all very simple to document. I've used the word, you should document this and you should write this down and you should, make a system out of it so many times in this Founder Foundation series. But the truth is, it should be really easy to do. It should require very, very little effort for you. And if you don't have a system that allows that, you should get one. And here's a little plug. Go check out parsimony.com that has many of these systems already built in. My point is that by having my time blocked off for Monday, I know what's up on Mondays. Now, I'll just tell you, there are some Mondays I'm flying on an airplane. Now, in general, I honestly try to avoid travel days being Mondays so that I can maintain that rigorous check-in with all the different business units and leadership members. But sometimes, inevitably, things happen and, Bob's your uncle, I'm traveling. So we just skip that week, right? And that's okay. There's no panic because we meet so often that there rarely is some sort of giant emergency that can't wait until one following week. That's the benefit of having these weekly BDMs. So when necessary, we skip them. And then, that's a travel day at that point. We don't make those meetings up. That's my main point. I want to be very clear with you. Just because you have this meeting set and it's weekly, if you have to miss one, you can't miss 3 in a row. That's not acceptable. So fix your calendar so you're not doing that. But if you miss one from time to time, it's not that big a deal. That's not to say that we treat these without value. It's just, recognizing that reality gets in the way. One of your people might have a dentist appointment. They can't move and, it takes forever to get it. And they didn't think about it being on a Monday, or maybe it's a dental emergency, who knows? And they miss it. That's life. You just get them on the next week and everything's documented and all the data is still there and it's all fine. So again, blocking your time is useful. That's my Monday. Now, my Fridays, for the last couple of years, I block off my Fridays entirely. Nobody can touch my Friday. I don't want anybody on my calendar on Friday. And then I decide what, if anything, I'm going to do on Fridays. Sometimes I just decide I'm going to read, or I'm going to go for a drive, or I'm going to listen to podcasts, or I'm not going to work that day. Right? That's my prerogative. And almost every weekend, well, for sure, every weekend is no accessible calendar for anybody. And most of the time, I'll try to take those weekends off. Doesn't mean I never have opened email, or I never am on the system, or never working on a weekend. It just means nobody in the company is going to be able to jump on my schedule on a weekend. So that's at least 3 days blocked off for me time. And you cannot undervalue what that is, everybody. You have to have some me time. So, by the way, Tuesday morning, I have a follow-up accessible block of time for external meetings. So on Monday, if something happens to get free, then on my Calendly, people will be able to see any open time I have on a Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday. But on Mondays, it's limited based on only what I have available, based on my meeting marathon. On Tuesdays, it's typically a half a day block on Tuesday, and then it's a quarter day block on Wednesday. And really, my objective is I don't want that many people interrupting my time. So my Tuesday is, some block for meetings, but most of the block is for me to go validate what I heard on Monday. So on Mondays, I'm having these meetings. We're having a lot of discussions. I'm looking at KPIs, looking at performance. And if I have questions like, gosh, this is going really well, why are we selling more than we expected to? I want to go dive into the system and start running reports, or start investigating what those results are based on, whether it's positive or negative. I still want to know why. And again, this is a block of time. So let's say Tuesday afternoon, that block of time is, again, kind of report validation, question and answer, mostly me independently going in and diving in and trying to figure out answers. And if I can't, then I'm creating tasks for people to produce additional data and information for me so that I can further analyze that. If you don't understand how things work in your business, you're playing at a disadvantage to your competition. You, as a leader in your business, whether you're the entrepreneur, owner, or a key leader, you have to understand how different levers in your impact impact you. And if you we had sales are up 20%, we don't know why. That's not a good reason. You should find out why. I remember one time sales were up suddenly in one of our business units, and we're like, we have no idea why this is happening. We just don't understand it. And it took me a couple weeks to figure it out. And ultimately, I think we established that some influencer, or maybe it's our own video, but some video is now ranking like number one on YouTube for that particular keyword, which happened to be a big keyword for us. And then, so we tried to deduce, all right, well, that ranking drove a bunch more traffic, which drove a bunch more sales. But how did that ranking suddenly get so high that it was impactful? And I'm not sure if we ever got to that answer per se, but the whole point is you want to understand it to whatever level is reasonable, and so that you can prevent problems and you can double down on the good stuff. So that's my Tuesday. So I've told you my Monday is Marathon Monday, and I will do, literally from even 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. or 8 p.m. sometimes meetings. I do put in a block so I can go have a lunch or have a drive. I sometimes just have to clear my head. So there's probably a good hour in there that will be free. And frankly, with Retirement 2.0, I'll have a larger block of time in the middle of the day. So I'll do like a split shift, morning and afternoon where I meet with people. But a big part of my Mondays have just opened up, which is great news for me. Now, I've also explained Tuesday, right? We've got a morning block of meetings, half a day, and then an analysis half a day. And then Wednesday is a quarter day block for meetings. This just makes sure that I have some availability for team or external people who have my calendar link so they can get into my schedule. And then the rest of the day is for follow-ups on any of that analysis or further analysis. And then finally, Thursday is kind of like, just think of it like strategic free time. Like Thursday, I try to figure out, where's the company going? Why are we doing this? Are we on track? Are we happy? Are we sad? What's working, what's not working? Big picture stuff. And this is largely unstructured time. So, maybe I'm studying some reports, or maybe I'm watching a video. Like with geopolitics, that's been almost a daily part of my life for the last 3 or 4 years, certainly since the pandemic, trying to figure out supply chain and impacts and things like that. And that remains not just incredibly important, it's impacting the entire world, and it will continue to forever for sure. But disruption wise, it's clear that it's at least another 6, 12, 18, 24 months of kind of weird, annoying disruptions based on everything from a strike to crazy COVID policies here or there, to other random supply chain gaps due to weird wars or other things. And all of these things matter if you're in a product-based business. So some of my Thursdays are real deep dives into what's happening in China, and how can we get Vietnam to overcome this particular thing, and why can't India do this or that? This port that they're trying to build is being blocked by locals. Like trying to figure out how all this stuff fits together. That's big picture stuff that a CEO is supposed to do. And each CEO out there, anybody who's the leader of their organization, you have your own big picture work that you should have time for. Simply being in the office and having that line of people out in front of your door every day is not good quality work for the entrepreneurial leader. And as you move into management, you should also have time to make sure that you can review, what's the status of my team? How happy are we with our objectives? Can we push ourselves harder? Or maybe is this objective not feasible for next quarter? We need to push back, on upper management against it. You have to have some time in your time blocks for this, strategic level work. And then I've already told you about Friday. So now that's my week block of time. And that's, that has worked for me. And it's evolved over time, right? It didn't start like that 15 years ago, and then I just used it ever since. And it evolves, based on, your day-to-day responsibilities. When you first start out, you're doing a lot more of that tactical level work, but the blocking system still works. So that works for certainly many people in leadership, including entrepreneur business owners. Now let's talk about somebody who's doing, the technical level work, or tactical work, as I enjoy saying. The great news is, with a solid group of SOPs, their life gets real easy, real fast. And so, especially if they have kind of more repetitive work, you can simply make a checklist of SOPs that's like your Monday morning block. In fact, you can do it around break times. So let's say that somebody's going to work an 8-hour day. They got an hour lunch in between. So that means they got 2 blocks of 4 hours that they're working. And they work the first 2-hour block. Let's make that a checklist. And this checklist should encompass these SOPs on a Monday. And then the next, let's call it, Monday. So Monday AM slot 1 is checklist, that's the checklist. Monday AM slot 2 is the checklist. Then Monday PM slot 1 checklist. Monday PM slot 2 checklist. Like that, it can be that clear. And your team member can jump in there and then go write down those checklists. And they should be very close to the appropriate timing. If they end up done early, they move farther on their checklists. And then they can, raise their hand and go, hey, I've got time to do other stuff. What would you like me to work on? That's okay too. And by the way, the best people always go, I need more work. Please give me more work. It's ironically for me, it's always been difficult to keep the best people super busy. And those people are also incredibly unhappy when you tell them, just take it easy, till tomorrow, get on your next checklist. They want to do stuff. They want to make an impact. And it's kind of incumbent upon us to give the best people who are, in that mindset, powerful, impactful things they can do. They want to make a difference in your business. So, that Monday checklist that same process of breaking the day parts can work on a Tuesday, and it can work on a Wednesday and a Thursday and a Friday. And now you've got essentially a 40-hour work week of checklists that they can go through and just accomplish those checklists. Remember that SOPs, so a checklist is a series of SOPs, and they may not need to read the SOP and go through because they remember how to do this particular job. But the SOP should be accessible and nearby if they need to click on it and view it, right? So a little plug here, sopbox.co. You can see how we manage our SOPs. They're super easy. They slide out of any browser window. They're always accessible. And the same thing goes with checklists. They can just go right down the list, check them off. And the best news is, from a management perspective, we can run reports on what the length of time is they spent on each of those checklist tasks. And so you can see, did somebody just show up, at one time during the day and in 3 minutes click all the buttons and then disappear, implying that they didn't actually do the work? Or did they actually, do it according to a normal rhythm? You can also add in some tasks, report uploads or screenshots or other things that would demonstrate completion of a task if you felt that a validation point was needed. The great news, again, though, is with technology and the ability to manage remote staffs, our life is far, far easier and far, far better than it was 10 or 15 years ago. It really gives us some unique opportunities to make a big difference. So by the way, one other little side effect of having a good time management system is you can kind of see somebody's calendar. So when we use our system, and this I think applies to ClickUp or Trello or Asana, when you're assigning tasks and you're putting deadlines, they can see when a task begins and when a task ends. And if they have too many tasks during that particular time, don't be unreasonable. Give them some time. And either you have to push some of those tasks that exist, or you have to wait until after those tasks are complete before you add on more work. And again, most calendaring systems, you're able to visually see a calendar. This is certainly true in Parsimony, largely task related. I'm not sure how the checklists look on that calendar off the top of my head, mostly because I don't have any checklists I have to do, so it's not on my calendar. That's a little confession. But the whole point is, when you look at a teammate's calendar and they are being overwhelmed by tasks or by you being unreasonable, we got to check ourselves and we got to figure out, what is sustainable, what's reasonable. Remember that, there's some ways of improving the efficiency of work or automating aspects of that work, but there's actual just realities of raw time. Like, I go here and I open this document and then I have to do these tasks, and that's going to take me 15 minutes. And on my best day, it might take me 13 minutes, but it still takes me time. So if you give me 20 of those to do in a day, we got a problem, right? Because that's more minutes than I may have in a day. And by the way, I'm not doing the minute math, so if that's under a work day, then forgive me. Philosophically, my friends, that's what I'm trying to get across to you, that we have to calibrate work that is long-term sustainable and that people can do. People in bursts and in sprints can do a little bit more, and they can, push a little bit harder. But for the long term, they have to have some reasonable level of output. And if you need more output, that means you have to go back and engineer the systems differently and look for opportunities to, first of all, you look for the opportunity to eliminate it. Do we even need to do this? Sometimes stuff we used to do exists because we used to do it. And then you ask, who's using this report? Who's looking at this? Does this matter? And at some point, somebody goes, no, what? Nobody's using this. Stop doing it, right? And I use the example of lawmakers. In every country, this is applicable. I'll use the United States as my example. Every state, at the state level, at the local level, at the federal level, all they do is write more laws, right? They're lawmakers. They're not law deleters. So they just keep making more and more laws, more and more rules. Many of those that are still on the books are nonsense old rules that no longer make any sense for that particular governmental organization. The same is quite true in your company. If you're not taking out processes or tasks that are no longer relevant or critical to your business, then you're not doing a good job of, being respectful of your own team's time and outputs. It just makes sense to be efficient. So your first challenge, can we eliminate this? Do we actually have to do this? The next is, no, we got to have it. So how can we automate this, or how can we get some other form of input that would be easier on our people to produce? Ideally with, no human touch. The system just emails this report, or, notifies you this report's available and you can link to, the report, or some combination of, reduction of tasks required plus automation plus a higher leverage of the person's time. That can engender more efficiency. But simply saying work harder, faster, longer is not a sustainable management practice. And I know there's the whole hustle and grind culture and blah, blah, blah. But at the end of the day, ordinary people can produce extraordinary results only with a system. That's the leverage, not by beating them and sucking their life force from them. You want people who are energetic and happy to show up and engaged, as we've talked about in the past. And you get that by having good, solid systems and great delegations where they're very clear on what their responsibilities are. And ultimately that leads into, sufficient reporting so that everybody goes, yep, everything's working. All systems are green. And that's how we think about it in our companies, is when everything's operating great and it's all kind of within the norms, there's not a great need to have a bunch of conversations, right? We call it, everything's good, everything's green. And then when you get something red, the first thing is like, all right, what systemically is happening? And then it's like a handle with human situation. I need to get in there and I need to figure this thing out. And these are basically, that's the formula for managing by exception. You're only having to jump in on problems, things that are outside the parameters of normal. That's when managers, have to apply a little bit more brain power. Otherwise, it's just kind of monitoring like the giant control panel. Imagine you're at a giant power plant. If all the lights are green, you're mostly just, having a little coffee and thinking about the big picture. But the moment a light turns red, you're like, whoa, hang on. I need to get on red alert here and see what's going on. Whether that's a positive alert or a negative alert is quite irrelevant. It's about the management understanding and control of whatever that issue was. All right. So I think that gives a little bit of the philosophy about how you need to create management systems around time, whether it's time blocking or checklist management, or, eliminating the open door principles. All of these things are really important for time, not just for yourself as an individual, but for your organization. Like, this is a system for managing time. Figure out what system applies to what position, and then give them the freedom to, enforce that system. In other words, if you are calling them on a Saturday night to tell them to do something, you're the a-hole, right? There's the Reddit chain of, who's the a-hole. Well, you're the a-hole if you're calling them on a Saturday and it's not a show-stopping emergency. So that's the little caveat there. If I have to call somebody and it's on their off time, it's only because it's a show-stopping bug, right? Let's give you a couple examples. I call an engineer because a web service is down on let's say the carts can't check out. I need their help, and I apologize that it's on the weekend, but the system's broken. It's a show-stopping bug. Please help me. Again, I'm sorry it's on your off time. Another example might be, I'm giving a speech tomorrow, and all the speech materials are supposed to be in my Dropbox folder. They're not there. It's your off time, but it's my go time. I please need your help. I'm sorry to bother you. We'll talk later in our BDM about why this wasn't in the place that I thought it should be at the time I thought it should be there. That's a BDM conversation for later, but right now I got a showstopper. Please help me. There are other examples, obviously, that I could give, but I think you guys get the gist. So time is, such a precious commodity. It's as I have said in the past, it's something you can't buy more of for yourself, unless you're hiring people to do the job for you so that you can now apply your time elsewhere. That's the closest way that you can buy time. And so you're actually buying other people's time to substitute for you doing those things. That is a power move. And I certainly recommend getting a good team to help you. And now's a good time for me to talk about the things we have not covered, right? We've gone through a 31-part series. That's my gift to you, everybody. You can decide if the gift was valuable or it was like an old pair of socks to you. I hope you leave some comments and leave us some feedback so that we know if this is worth it to you, because it'll really dictate whether we do this thing or not, or if we choose to do any master classes, if these things have value, or any other methods of trying to reach out to entrepreneurs. Like, if what we say has no value to you, tell us. We'll take it and we'll understand. But on the other hand, if you do value it, then let us know that too. And especially if it has value, leave the review and share it with your friends so that we can get some feedback. So as I said, we have only gotten about, 2/3 of the way through the management module, right? Remember, the premise of this 31 days is I'm showing you the first 31, what would they be considered? Components of our leadership training. But there are, I don't even know how many, well over 100 components. And, things about HR and, more about, how you fulfill products and how you get operational performance and 5-star service and, critical systems review and, time and motion studies, how you focus on conversion and, what's your lead generation concepts and how do you bring those programs to life, that's more advanced marketing. Getting deeper and deeper into leadership, both for the entrepreneur and for the key senior team. And then, there's HR, right? Now, how are we recruiting? How are we hiring? What are the scaling objectives that we have? And how do we put systems in place to scale? How do we do financial forecasting? How do we make sure that we're forecasting our inventory and our cash flow and all this other stuff? Because getting paid matters and cash flow is king, right? All of these things are relevant. We get into things like, how do you raise working capital and, what does advanced project and task management look like so that you can really drive an organization forward? How do you set your company up for growth? What does growth marketing even look like? And in a digital world, how do you deploy more growth assets without, quintupling your marketing budget? What is the process of experimenting, validating, and then scaling, right? As I like to say, first you nail it, and then you scale it. Then getting into, how can you do more wow fulfillment concepts? What are the faster ways you can do things? Both, it's easy to go, well, I just use Amazon and they have next day air, or they have same day delivery or whatever. Fair enough. But, between Shopify and Deliver, or maybe your service business and you could deliver your results faster than the competition for less money, wouldn't that be a growth driver? Start thinking about conversion in a very, very advanced way. Most of everything we've done so far is kind of 101 level, base level stuff. Getting into higher and higher levels of advancement when we start thinking about, lead gen objectives and growth marketing and, being very strategic in that marketing. All of that comes into, channel selection and messaging and almost a process of like, we're going to experiment, we're going to optimize, we're going to find what wins, we're going to kill the losers and expand on the winners, like all of that. by this time, by the way, I'm just reading through our list. You're down to, component 112 of the course. You've got more marketing, you've got more leadership, you got more branding. All of this is now at scale, right? Now you should be a 10 million plus business probably to start thinking about a lot of this stuff. You're starting to look at supplier scorecards, and you're looking at, how you acquire customers and kind of building your own scorecard. Are we on the right track? You're doing productivity management, where you're really getting into the deep, deep depths of maximizing productivity within your company. This is where, our business intelligence unit would come in and start supplying reports and performance data. People love scorecards. I mean, believe it or not, all you have to do is show people the score, and they will start falling in love with performance because they want that number to go higher or lower, depending on which way is positive. And then on and on, about, managing and having the way of performing at a high level. Like, all of this stuff is really, really important. But, you're talking about 150 plus components, and we've only covered 31. And that's just the nature of business, right? There's always more to learn. So my hope for you guys is that you, again, find value in this. Like, subscribe, share, do all those things. And let's see if this thing amplifies itself. And because I have never done any promotion or any focus on Awesomers as a platform, this will be a good test for us to see if it has value to you guys. Because if it doesn't, fair enough, no problem. I don't have to waste my breath. But if it does, then we need to figure out ways of helping the community. And we'll do, Awesomers will kind of remain as is probably, but Catalyst 88 is taking on some of the leadership training and some of the things that I think need to be worked on. Particularly as I'm in retirement 2.0, I have more time to figure out how I want to calibrate my network impact objectives. So anyway, everybody, I really appreciate you. I thank you for your time. And if you've made it this far, you are a champion awesomer without a doubt. And I can't wait to see you at the top.